Season 5 marked a real tonal shift on Voyager as Jerry Taylor moved on, and Brannon Braga was promoted to her position as executive producer. And I think few things sum up that difference better than the holodeck subplot. Under JT, we had a Victorian Gothic mystery that went nowhere because the only thing it added to Voyager was to make the surrounding material less tedious by comparison. That's not to say that's a bad style, it's just that it was so terribly executed that even if you were open to that, there was nothing remotely interesting about it. Under Braga, we got Captain Proton, as if Jeff Goldblum had shown up one day saying, "Have you thought about having some science fiction in your science fiction show?" To repeat the comment I made when I covered the cult classic Flash Gordon movie, what made that film work was that it wholly embraced its kitsch nature without ever, not once, winking at the camera. It was camp science fiction done with total sincerity. And that genuine attitude allowed the clearly absurd, if not outright throwback nature of the work to nevertheless hold your interest. Sure, you still couldn't help but laugh at times, but even when laughing at the film, it was never with any kind of cruelty, because it wasn't a film done badly. It was a film that didn't realize what year it actually was, and its dated antics held a kind of charm. Captain Proton is heavily influenced by Flash Gordon, and for that same kind of reason, it's actually rather endearing. I'm all for sophistication and speculative fiction, don't get me wrong. To have it recognized by snobs as a legitimate form of storytelling is one of the things I hope to see. And yet, sometimes cleansing the palate with good old-fashioned rocket ships and ray guns and villains who commit evil for evil's sake is actually refreshing. I mean, it would get old fast, but...
A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men.
So we start with Paris in the role of Captain Proton, Defender of the Universe, and Harry Kim as his sidekick, Hey You, trying to rescue Miss Goodhart, his secretary, from the clutches of the fiendish Chaotica, despite the attack from the Death Ray. I take that back. I could watch this every week. Even the music gets into the act, going for the excessive sound of exciting peril as they struggle to survive this dastardly attack.
Hey, I thought you said there were slave girls in this chapter.
Naturally, that has Harry's interest, because this week, Harry's always been into... heterosexuality! On their way to infiltrate the Fortress of Doom, there's an earthquake, only it wasn't caused by tectonic activity or anything by Chaotica. No, this was an intrusion by a spatial anomaly into our reality, because obviously that's more realistic than an earthquake machine. Well, this intrusion interferes with the holodeck controls, and it seems that it's more than just messing with the black and white atmosphere here. Voyager's now stuck. But the real threat is...
Halt! In the name of Chaotica!
The Planet X Burger King. Where's your god now, Proton? Of course, villains count on the hero's sense of honor. That's why you can sucker punch them with a gun sometimes if you realize that you don't have any. They can't shut down the holodeck, but they can beam themselves out of the holodeck to deal with this crisis.
Basically, we've run aground on a subspace sandbar.
Sandbar? All this stuff with absurd science fiction made me briefly forget that Voyager is absurd science fiction. Well, the subspace field is messing with everything because quantum. You'll see just how silly that gets later. Janeway theorizes this was just like what happened in Booby Trap. I mean, just like what happened to her on a completely unrelated incident, Shut Up. That they just needed to ease their way out instead of trying to force their way out. This is difficult for Janeway, of course, because her usual approach to such problems is to use force, if not flat out shoot it. And that's not even a joke. Parallax forced their way through the anomaly. Time and again, shoot the anomaly. Phage, shoot the anomaly. The Cloud, shoot the thing you think is an anomaly. But I'll stop because I just realized I'm listing every single Voyager episode after Caretaker in order. I think that proves my point.
Route all available power to the engines.
We're not moving. The impulse reactor's running hot. We're heading for an overload.
Give it all she's got. Full thrusters.
But things are taking a turn for the weird in the holodeck as two G-men arrive out of nowhere and are quickly captured by Chaotica's henchmen, and on hearing their story concludes that they must be from the fifth dimension. They claim they're just explorers, photonic life forms, so I'm guessing they must have entered the holodeck assuming the forms appropriate for the setting, either intentionally or unintentionally. Either way, they're unprepared for someone so steeped in evil as Chaotica is, who finally executes one before the other can escape. There can be only one response to such insolence, of course.
Gather my space force. Power the Death Ray! At once, Majesty!
And what a perfect time to transition to Janeway, who arrives in the mess hall demanding coffee and won't accept the crew is dying for an answer.
While I've got your attention, there are...
Coffee first.
Some think this is a sign of Janeway's warped sense of priorities, but me, it's obvious she needs to get her drink on, if only to reach the point where Neelix's voice won't sound like the shrieking wails of the damned. And not in the good way either. That subspace thing is messing with the replicators, and rather unbelievably...
We've only got 4 functioning laboratories for a ship of 150 people.
Yes, that's Starfleet, isn't it? Why go for low-tech and functional when you can go high-tech and have it break due to the slightest technical hiccup? I will never be able to hear those reroute all power spiels without picturing some helpless ensign sitting on a toilet as the lights flicker and go out, soon followed by an ominous gurgle. I'll bet the doctor spends half his time dealing with constipation and kidney stones on this ship.
I'm going to leave these problems in your capable hands.
Yes, ma'am. Now, I was thinking if we drew up a schedule that...
Whatever it takes.
I do hope you're not suggesting scheduling when you have to take a dump, Neelix, especially with your cooking. Their efforts to escape this bowel-constricting nightmare fails because of disruptions in the holodeck, as a state of war now exists between the explorers from the realm of photonic energy and fictional character Chaotica. I always knew it'd end this way. Tuvok and Paris are sent in to check it out and discover...
Satan's robot.
Yes, the less commonly asked question than, why would God need a starship, is, why would Satan need a robot? Except obviously a Roomba. Anyone can use a Roomba. They fix the robot and question it, learning about the invaders from the 5th dimension, who are indeed responsible for the weapons fire.
Apparently he's found a new enemy.
The 5th dimension.
It seems your infantile scenario now poses a security risk.
Hey, juvenile maybe, but not infantile. Let's not get personal here. Back on the holodeck, one of the aliens arrives in Captain Proton's rocket, so Tuvok tries to explain that this isn't real. But to the photonic alien, the only thing that can be real is a hologram, so he concludes that Paris and Tuvok aren't real. Which means he's either very wrong, or he's aware they're characters on a television show, but either way this is a problem. And to make things worse, the robot attacks and the alien is driven off before they can get through to him, so it's off to the magic meeting room to try to explain all this.
And now an armed conflict has broken out between these aliens and Chaotica's holographic army.
Yes, ma'am. His army of evil.
As a deadpan snarker, let me tip my hat to McNeil for perfectly delivering that line. So with the holodeck controls offline and apparently no way to just unplug the damn thing, they'll have to send the doctor in to negotiate with the aliens, and Paris suggests helping to thwart Chaotica in the hopes that his defeat will convince them to leave.
Well, he's been attacking the aliens with his death ray.
It's a shame we don't have one.
Yes, isn't it just? Paris has a plan, but it will require someone on the inside, and the best option is Arachnia, queen of the spider people, whom Chaotica loves and wants to join in an alliance, presumably an alliance of evil. Janeway seems to think that Seven would be perfect for that role, but everyone else seems to think that if you want an evil empress bent on universal domination and who leads an army of warrior spiders to do so, well, she is the only one that comes to mind. So Paris starts to fill her in.
All right, well, first of all, he's a megalomaniac, so it's a good idea to appeal to his ego.
Yeah, so clueless, ha! Anyway, tell me again why I'm the only one awesome enough to pull this off.
And another thing. These villains always have a trick up their sleeve. Trapdoors, secret weapons.
It's the holodeck. I can't be hurt by weapons.
What, seriously? I thought the safety protocols were the first things to go once the holodeck breaks, you know? Because you can't spell failsafe without F-A-I-L.
If you have trouble with Chaotica, or you can't get to the death ray, you can always uncork the pheromones.
I beg your pardon.
I've already busted you down to ensign. Any lower and I'll make you change all the uranium rods in our toilets. He's suggesting literal pheromones. Arachnia's perfume is irresistible to Chaotica, so that's an ace in the hole. And they're going to need every edge against his diabolic genius.
Citizens of the 5th dimension, your feeble attacks are nothing but pinpricks to me. Surrender now, and I will be merciful.
Explore Planet X, you said. It'll be fine, you said. This is even worse than that time you brought us to that sharktopus. Looks like Janeway's picked just the right moment to arrive.
This is an historic occasion. Kindred souls meet at last.
Don't flatter yourself, weekend warrior. Chaotic is only too happy to show off his villainy.
But my greatest achievement is there. Behold, the Death Ray.
It looks like a formidable weapon.
She says, gently caressing the tip. Time to compare evil overlording.
Somehow I feel comfortable here.
I thought you might. I heard the seat of bottomless darkness was a little too hard, but with this cushion, you've really made a comfy throne of ultimate evil. Do you have a home decor blog? Because I'd love to subscribe. Janeway tries to talk him into lowering the lightning shield, but he's wary that in the moment of vulnerability, even an ally could attack him. And Arachnia measuring the place for new carpeting doesn't help. So there's one answer to this. She must wed Chaotica. Then she can't betray him, because the last thing you'd expect a female spider to ever do would be to kill her mate, right? Meanwhile, the Doctor arrives on Planet X in the guise of the President of Earth in order to meet with the aliens. Naturally, melodrama comes easily to the Doctor, so he fits right in with the setting and persuades them to halt their attack so that Captain Proton can save the day without getting blown up by friendly fire. But sadly, the Captain's having a hard time coping with all this. He decides to terminate the whole thing as soon as they have control of the holodeck back. Pity. I'd love for him and Torres to work together on building Satan's robot for real. I'd love for them to take that on away missions.
Mr. President, how'd it go?
My performance was unimpeachable.
But this was not long after Clinton was impeached. I'm sure Picardo threw that line in there. It's just his style. Meanwhile, Janeway's bonding with Chaotica.
Why this preoccupation with the shield?
Oh, forgive me. It's just that...
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
As a fellow ruler of the cosmos, I often have to do things myself.
Because of the incompetence of your inferiors, no doubt.
Preach it, brother. With Captain Proton approaching, Janeway must leap into action, taking out the guard, and with the jump on Chaotica, she can now demand he lower the shield so that Proton can destroy the Death Ray, as opposed to just destroying it herself. I mean, it's right there, and as Janeway says, where there's a will, there's a way to break that will. Luckily, the holodeck safeties are indeed working, so when she gets shot by Tor here, it has no effect on her. But the rings of containment catch her off guard and leave her trapped. Thwarted in my moment of victory because I was monologuing the prisoners. Well, this is just ironic, isn't it? Luckily, she slipped the pheromones up her sleeve because while Chaotica readies the Death Ray, she uncorks it. Is that bacon? Alas, he is unable to resist her charms and releases her, and this time she skips the monologuing and guns down everyone except Chaotica until he finally lowers the shield, allowing Proton to shoot the Death Ray and Chaotica with it. Thus the aliens are satisfied that the threat is over and leave, allowing Voyager to escape, and the villain is now thwarted for good.
Death, as you know it, has no hold on me.
Well, technically he's right, but he does have his own version of death that soon takes him. Or does it? No, he lives because he refers to these events in Shattered, so somehow he did survive! Post-episode follow-up, stupid Neelix's moment is getting in the way of Janeway's morning coffee. That is the most dangerous thing anyone can do on this ship, including licking the warp core, which I believe Neelix has also done. We have a Lazarus of the Week for Lanzac, who was left in a den of crocodiles, but survived, clinging to the thought that one day... Final score for Bride of Chaotica is 8 out of 10. While a little too contemptuous of the material at times, it was a fun diversion from the standard fare. In fact, the peril to Voyager near the end was an unwelcome intrusion on the far more interesting stuff that was going on the holodeck, and frankly shows that while it skewered the cliches of past science fiction, it was still clinging to Voyager's own cliches. Mulgrew handles the part pretty well, and Picardo really relishes the chance to do old-school melodrama, and Tuvok gets some great snark material. Overall, you could tell that this was an episode the cast was having fun with, and the guest stars did a great job of filling rather than parodying the roles that they had. But the threat from a cartoonish villain isn't over. Next week, the Ferengi will make one last feeble attempt to be taken seriously as a military threat in peak performance. And they will fail far worse than Chaotica did.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I'm afraid.